Irony is one of the most important aspects of storytelling. Without irony, your story will collapse like a corpse. On the flip side, irony, properly employed, will elevate every aspect of your storytelling. So today I'm going to discuss the three types of irony and how you might employ them to sharpen your story. Type 1 is verbal irony. Verbal irony occurs when a character or narrator says one thing but means another, and the audience and or listener is in on the alternative meaning. So this is what separates it from just lying. In verbal irony, the audience is in on the wordplay. We understand the mismatch of tone and content that is being created there. Now, verbal irony can take a number of forms. The most obvious form is sarcasm, where you say or write something in a tone that makes it obvious that you mean the opposite. But I'm sure none of you guys have ever used that before. So another form of verbal irony is hyperbole, which is extreme exaggeration, gross exaggeration to make a point of some kind. Like when my students tell me, "Mr. Morris, I literally couldn't get out of bed this morning." I know they're being hyperbolic because they're in my classroom and their bed is not. There's also ironic understatement, or litotis is a more specific form of it. If I say, "I guess I'm okay with it being Friday," or "the Disney live-action remakes feel a little bit kinda sorta like cynical cash grabs," it's probably not too hard for you to figure out my meaning. And of course, this can incorporate any kind of figurative language where you say something is what it is not. Personification, simile, metaphor, whatever kind of image creation you use, verbal irony is a potential tool for it. You just have to remember the voice of the character and or narrator who is speaking using that verbal irony. But remember that we all do use various forms of verbal irony in our everyday speech. So inserting the appropriate forms of irony into your character's dialogue can help humanize and differentiate those characters from each other, while employing it in narrative description can add perspective, relatability, even a conversational tone to your narrative voice. Just be circumspect with it. The second form of irony is dramatic irony. And this is when the audience or reader knows something that one or more of the characters does not. Some specific important point of information, usually. Dramatic irony is great for building anticipation and suspense, which is absolutely necessary to keep your viewers watching or to keep your readers turning to the next page. The benefits of dramatic irony are illustrated perfectly by this anecdote I've heard attributed to Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm going to be paraphrasing it here. But essentially, he says that if you have a couple eating dinner or eating lunch at a diner table, and they're having a conversation, and suddenly a bomb goes off under their table, whoa! The audience is startled. We get a few seconds of thrill. But if you show the audience the bomb under the table at the beginning of the scene, and make it clear that neither of the two people at the table know the bomb is there, then the audience gets several minutes, potentially, of anticipation and buildup and rising tension, wondering what is going to happen. With expectation comes that suspense, and that suspense keeps us glued to the screen. Now that tension, that need to know what happens next in the scene, that comes from dramatic irony. That is dramatic irony full illustrated. Dramatic irony is great also, by the way, for humor. You see it in every sitcom joke you've ever possibly seen. The audience is always in on some gag that at least some character on the screen is not in on. Our third and final type of irony is situational irony, also known as cosmic irony. Put most simply, situational irony occurs when we're given to expect a certain thing happening, but a different or opposite thing happens, which makes sense only in retrospect. So situational irony plays with the difference between appearance and reality. It isn't just coincidence or a plot twist from out of nowhere. Sorry, M. Night Shyamalan. And sorry, Alanis Morissette, but rain on your wedding day isn't ironic. At least not necessarily so. It's just an unfortunate coincidence, just like a no smoking sign on your cigarette break. In short, situational irony isn't just surprise. It's the kind of surprise that points to an internal contradiction. We're looking for incongruities between expectation and reality. Want to learn some more such things about the no smoking sign on your cigarette break example? Well, we could make that ironic, and we could actually build up the ironic tension within that idea. Let's say that the person had passed by earlier on when there was no smoking sign there and decided, nah, I'm not going to take my break now, I'm going to wait for later. And only later is the no smoking sign there. Oh, crap. Well, okay, well, then he's got to go somewhere else. Well, let's say that this no smoking sign is in the only smoking section in the entire 3-city block radius, and he only has 10 minutes for his smoke break. He doesn't have time to get away from the complex and back. So he's got no choice but to smoke in the smoking area, and there's a no smoking sign there. There's a bit of irony there. Let's build it up further. It's more ironic if the smoking section now is a no smoking section, because yesterday he had a cigarette there and didn't properly pay attention to how he put it out, and he caused a small fire. Without even realizing it, he himself has doomed himself to not having a cigarette today. Don't smoke, kids. Anyway, there's all sorts of ways to build the situational irony into that situation. But just a coincidence, happy or sad, is not necessarily ironic. You need to make it make sense in retrospect, tie it all together with the ironic twist. And from that example, the more emotional oomph you build into the anticipated outcome, the more expectation you create, the greater will be the emotional swing when those expectations are undermined or subverted. And thus, the stronger your payoff will be, tying it back into the setup. Irony is a crucial component of storytelling. I said it at the beginning of this video. I also said it in the very first video I ever made for this channel. It's nearly impossible to tell a good story without irony of some sort, and most well-told stories apply heaping helpings of all 3 forms of irony at various times, yet do so in a logical way that keeps the story grounded within its own story world. Again, the 3 forms are: I spend so much time teaching, I think I must have been doing it my whole life. Jack sat reading his book, unaware of the murderer creeping up behind him with the lamp cord. James waited for the sunniest, nicest day to wash his car. He even parked his car by the tall oak tree to protect it from the wind. He'd just finished buffing the second coat of wax onto the hood when the wind blew a branch off the oak tree and dropped it onto the top of the car, crushing the trunk, roof and hood and all. That's when James remembered that, because he'd spent his last dime on car wax, he'd neglected to pay his insurance premium that month. Try applying irony to your own work. For instance, if you've written a scene that feels lifeless or flat, consider how adding a bit of ironic juxtaposition in the situation, in the reader knowledge versus the character knowledge, or in the character dialogue or narration, how that might liven things up for you and bring a spark or energy to your writing again. Leave a comment below. How do you use irony? Do you recognize it always when you're using it? Do you think about it as you plan things out, or do you only look for it in retrospect? What is your approach to inserting irony into your story? Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff, and I will see you next time. Unironically, good luck and good writing. Peace.